Welcome back. You're watching The Big Idea. Now, achieving economic independence is among the main goals in life of every individual, regardless of their gender. However, it is particularly relevant for women for whom are still facing many challenges in achieving economic autonomy. Today, as we look forward to celebrating Women's Day, we look into some of the reasons that have kept women away from financial emancipation and ways they can free themselves. Portfolio Specialist Director at Morningstar SA, Debra Slabber, joins us with more insight. Thank you so much for your time, Debra. Now, when we talk about financial security, what are we actually talking about here?
Ozzy, thanks so much for having me. I think financial security can mean so many different things. I think in this context, it means financial empowerment, whether it's being empowered by having a retirement product or savings product in your own name, or just by being empowered by first and foremost having the knowledge of what is going on. If you're not the primary caretaker, if you're not earning your own salary, I think it's very clear if we look at statistics that women live on average longer than men.
Yeah.
And that in itself makes a very, very good case for having that financial security and independence and not being at the mercy of things that's outside of your control.
Yeah. I mean, just also looking at, taking it back to, for example, your career choice, your education choice, because a lot of the time, some of the struggles that we see when it comes to women versus men sometimes will be linked to the kind of career choices that we have. Do you think that that is an actual significant thing that we need to look at? Or is that just not a thing? We need to take it out of the conversation.
No, Zia, I think it's very much part of the conversation. And I see a lot of my friends today struggling with this women going back to work after having babies, when to have children, is it appropriate? If I study towards a certain career, do I stay in that career? What does it take from how many hours I actually should be at work or should be at home? So I think career choice is a very big part of it.
Yeah.
I think, however, Izzy, that gap has closed significantly. As if we rewind a couple of decades ago, where we are today, there's been significant progress in terms of just allowing girls to actually go and study and actually choose a career path. But yes, as I said, the question still is like when it comes boiling down to who takes care of the household,
yes,
and what do you do about your career, I think that's still very relevant today.
Well, that's the thing, because I mean, obviously now you found a career and you're working, and there's still the issue of the gender pay gap, where we do have instances of women being paid lesser than men, even though they are doing the same job. And I like also that you brought in the fact that at some point some women will choose to have children, maybe take, some time off of work. How do we navigate the conversation around, the need to reduce that gender pay gap, but also not to punish women for the choices of motherhood and the like?
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I feel women are still being punished in a big way, but I also feel like, being a woman myself, we must also stop being victims of circumstances. If it's your choice to take some time off work, maybe a couple of years, or to go and do a half-day work, it's absolutely up to you. But then you need to realize that what's going to happen in your retirement savings, you've got this big gap, and you're potentially you're going to earn less if you work less. That's just how economics 101 works.
Yes.
But I think the big thing is, I think COVID in a big way has changed our lives.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be formally employed, if I can call it that. You can work online, you can choose your own hours, you can do something different. You don't have to go to an office, be formally employed, if you still want to make money on the sidelines while having kids, because let's face it, kids have to go to school. So you have a couple of hours a day where you can still earn an income. And just on the point now that I think about not being formally employed,
Yes, yes.
I have this, I knew this lady, and I still know her today.
Yeah.
So I met her many years ago, and she was the lady that always did my nails at a salon, when I still lived in Joburg. And then the one day I got there, and she was gone, and I was devastated. I was like, "How who's going to do my nails now?" I
Yeah.
absolutely loved her. And then, as life happens, a couple of weeks later, I bumped into her in a shopping center, and she said to me, "Deborah, I've started my own salon actually because I realized I've got so many loyal clients,
Ah.
and I'm going to make more money on my own rather than
Yeah.
being part of this salon where I pay most of my commission actually away." And then she started her own business, was hugely successful for a while, and then COVID hit. And then she adapted so quickly, went onto a mobile salon, and then saved enough money to buy a school bus because she realized
Wow.
staying in an informal settlement, her kids are struggling to get to school.
Yeah.
So her husband is taking all his kids from the informal
Mm.
settlement to school on a daily basis. She earns an extra income. On top of that, she loved cooking, so she started cooking for traditional weddings. And I look at
Wow.
this woman and I think it is so impressive how you have so little and you made such a big success out of your life. You're not financially dependent on any man. You've got kids to raise,
Yeah.
you've got an income, and you've made such a good life for yourself.
Yeah.
And that to this day just always sticks with me. So I think if more women can just put on their lipstick,
Mm.
do their nails, dress up, show up,
Yeah.
and more women like that, then we'll be in a completely different scenario.
It's really quite interesting because, I mean, as the economic landscape changes, you're also empowered to be more innovative and go after, more areas of, revenue streams, where can you empower yourself? But also, besides empowering yourself, I actually, because you mentioned also that, she has a husband, she has kids, so it looks like she has a good support system. Do you think that women, in terms of financial empowerment and, going after what they want in terms of securing those income streams, they're still largely alone in that journey? Or do you think that, times have changed where now there are more people that are supportive around them?
I think times have changed. I think women are speaking up more. I think women are more supportive of each other. And it's not that traditional. We're not finding ourselves in that traditional man has all the power, man earns the money, so he's got all the power. You raise the kids. It's by far less marriages that we're seeing. People are actually not, even though sometimes women have kids, they don't necessarily get married,
Yeah.
but they have communities around them. And I think that is one of the biggest superpowers of women is that sense of community. We've got a huge amount of EQ and
Yeah.
compassion and empathy for each other. So I think that has changed. I think there's definitely been a shift over the last number of
Yeah.
decades.
Well, talking about support, because we also have to look at the financial institutions that women interact with on the daily, on their journey of, financial independence, emancipation, and empowerment. The traditional financial institutions, do you think that they do or have adopted a sensitivity and are helpful in terms of getting women to the point of financial independence in terms of also the products that they offer women? But also when a woman comes to goes to a bank for a loan, do you think that they're sensitive in terms of what the woman can offer and also the risk that comes with that?
I think there's definitely been progress. If you look at just a pure from a number perspective, the amount of women over time, over the last decade, that has grown in terms of having access to retirement products, to savings products. And I'm just taking one of the big platforms in South Africa, that data as a proxy, but it's a good proxy for the rest of South Africa.
Yeah.
I do think in world terms, the access to financial products as a whole has increased significantly. There was a study by the World Bank a couple of years ago, and it actually showed in 2011 only 50% of the population, regardless of gender,
Yeah.
had access to some financial services or products. In 2021, that grew to closer to 80%. However, if you look a little bit deeper into that data, it does still show that gender gap, that it's more male dominated than female. But I do think when our financial institutions have been hugely successful in programs for women, educational programs for women, getting women access to these type of products. So I do think there's a big sensitivity to it. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest let's say challenges is that women actually live longer. So if you are in your entire life dependent on someone, you need to make sure that what if that person is not there anymore? And that could be simple things like make sure that if you are completely financially dependent on someone, is there a life insurance policy in place that if that person passes away, am I going to be okay? Make sure that life insurance policy is in your name. The same goes for retirement savings. Make sure that you've at least got something in your name. I think the other thing that women sometimes get excluded from, but sometimes it's their own fault, is to be just informed in terms of what's going on in the household finances. And then I think another point that we haven't touched on yet is just something like an anti-nuptial agreement in case you go, if you get married. Some women just overlook that because you're young and you're in love and everything is hunky-dory. But 20 years down the line, you don't have a proper contract in place. What's going to happen with you financially if you were not the sole breadwinner or the main breadwinner in the family?
Well, talking about these financial products, I mean, you mentioned some of the longer term ones like life insurance, retirement plan. But in the short term, I mean, what would you put in terms of, financial products that a woman does need to have to make sure that her journey of financial emancipation is on a solid and sustainable trajectory? A sort of a starter pack.
A starter pack, so definitely have your own bank account, I would say. So that's the first and foremost thing that you need to be looked after. The second thing is start very, very small from a savings perspective, whether it's just a savings account or opening a tax-free savings account. In South Africa, you're allowed to save 36,000 Rand per annum. That's completely, all those returns are free of tax. And that's an excellent vehicle and a very good starter pack, if you want to call it that. And then just contributing to a retirement annuity. So open up a retirement annuity, the minimums are so low. And that allows you over time, and you're talking now shorter term, but the long term is made up of the short term. And the compounding effect of just saving 100 Rand a month or 500 Rand a month, it's going to be hugely beneficial. So for me, that would be the must-have starter pack for a woman. And I'll probably add a point there is just, for women, sometimes we just don't have a budget, and we just spend until money is finished. And I think having a budget is one of the most powerful things to just understand, where am I spending my money? I mean, if I go and do an exercise and I count just the amount of money that I spend on coffee a week, I want to fall over because
you're speaking to me right now.
Exactly. So you don't realize that it's actually there's huge power in data and just understanding your own spending habits and just maintaining your own personal income statement, understanding where your debt is, understanding what assets that you have, just building that knowledge base. And it can be intimidating, but you're not alone. There is people out there that want to help you. There's communities, there's other women in the same scenario. So don't exclude yourself from the financial aspect of the household. Include yourself.
But how difficult is it? Because I mean, in South Africa, it's evident that we don't have a culture of saving and thinking for the long term in terms of your financial security. And I'm just thinking, there's already this, lack of trying to secure financial security. And I'm just thinking, where do women include themselves or exclude themselves out of that culture?
So I think you are right. Your first point on the savings culture, and that's not gender based. Our savings culture in South Africa is absolutely terrible,
Yeah.
and we know the terrifying stats of people retiring and running out of money long before they actually pass away.
Yeah.
So that is a very sad statistic in South Africa. But as I just mentioned, my own personal example of just adding up how many coffees I
Yes.
buy a week, easily a couple of R100 or R1,000 even a month. So if you buy, starting with that personal budget or income statement, quickly you can realize, actually, I don't need so many subscriptions, actually don't need all these magazines every month. I don't need to go and do my nails every week. I don't need to buy 2 coffees a day outside of the office.
Yeah.
There's small little ways, and it's all the small things that add up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So for whether you're a woman or a man, it's actually quite easy to save, even if it's just a little bit. But in order to do that, you need to be able to actually understand your own spending habits and your own finances. And then I think on your second point, when it comes to women including or excluding themselves from household finances, I think, yes, it happens quite a lot in marriages, but I also think women take a back seat and they just either don't care or they've been treated like the husband will handle the finances and I don't have to
Yes,
worry about
yes.
it. But just demand your seat at the table.
Yeah.
Have access to go to the financial advisor if there's a planning meeting happening. Make sure that you set up the budget for the household. So involve yourself in small ways. And studies have actually shown that women who take control of finances over the household actually prioritize investments, they prioritize spending on healthcare, on education, and that leads to better outcomes for their children, for their
Yeah.
families, and the development of communities. So I think it starts with women. I think you need to include yourself in the conversation. You need to know what's going on in the finances, and you need to build up your knowledge. And there's loads of mediums available for you to
Yeah.
build up your knowledge.
Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us insights right before Women's Day tomorrow. Of course, we celebrate that tomorrow in South Africa. Thank you so much for your time and giving us insights on how women can actually go about empowering themselves financially. That was Debra Slabber, Portfolio Specialist Director at Morningstar SA.